What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. I actually recorded this episode once, and then I had to go back and do it again right now because I had some weird kind of feedback issue happening when I listened to the playback. There was this clicking noise happening. I was going to try to power through it, but I don't want to make you guys suffer through that, so I figured I would just go back and try it again. What else is cracking with me? Not a whole lot. Posted my new in the bag video not too long ago. If you guys are into that sort of thing, I know I am. I love in the bag videos. I'm always encouraging other people to do them. I think they're fun. Some people are too cool for in the bag videos now, but I still think they're one of the more fun aspects of our sport. Is what people end up using, why they choose what they choose, and seeing all the different discs that people use and kind of the different approaches to the game. I think that's one of the more fun aspects of disc golf is just all the different variations and plastics and different molds and different techniques to achieve the same goal of throwing the less shots than everybody else. Another interesting thing, I took a couple of friends out for their very early rounds of disc golf. One of them had never thrown a disc before in their life, and my other friend had played one time, but she didn't really know what was going on. Her and her friend went out and tried it, and they didn't really have any idea what they were doing, so they were kind of just winging it. And I was happy to actually take both of them out and show them a little bit of the basics, the grip, and some basic form stuff. It's always interesting, though, because you got to kind of be careful with it. You can't go too far. And kind of overcoach to the point where you're just being obnoxious. Nobody likes that. So you have to strike a balance between teaching and showing different things, but also letting them try it and figure it out and have fun. So that's kind of what I was going for, at least, and ended up settling in. Hannah really liked the DGA Tremor. That disc worked out really well for her. It was a very straight flying disc, and got some really reasonable distance as well, so I ended up gifting her that disc. I think that's a good overall disc for her to play with for a while until she starts to build some more arm speed. I always recommend mid-ranges and putters. Always hammering that here on the channel, and it's proven itself to be effective once again. I'm starting to lean a little bit towards understable mid-ranges for beginners just because they're a little bit more like a golf disc, and it's a little easier to get a little bit of distance out of them, but it totally depends, because my other friend, Fallon, she doesn't really throw discs or frisbees much at all, so she actually settled in quite nicely to a DX XD that I had laying around, like a slightly broken-in DX XD putter, and that worked out really well. So it kind of depends on the skill level sometimes. Mid-ranges, putters, for sure. I had Hannah try a couple of very beginner-friendly drivers, and it was super apparent right away that it's just too soon for that. Take it slow, build up your base, your foundation underneath you. That's just a little advice I have for you based on some recent experience trying to get new players involved in disc golf. So for this episode, I will be breaking down and answering more of these questions that I still have left over from the giveaway for the Westside Queen. I actually powered through all of the remaining questions good few weeks ago at this point, and then that was the episode that didn't quite work out for me to post. So I'm going to get into it now. We're going to try to get through as many of these as I can. I'm not going to try to do all of them because that ended up being like an hour and a half or something like that, and ain't nobody got time for that. So starting off with question number 44, Darren Dodson, queen or king, best for newer, slower arm players? I would say both of those are too fast for any newer, slower arm player. But given the choice between only those two discs, it would be the Queen, hands down. The Queen is a pretty straight flying disc for people who don't have a big arm. Like I don't throw super far, and I found it to be extremely straight and somewhat neutral. I mean, it was definitely understable, but something that you could throw on a hyzer, let it stand up and work. You can hold a turnover, you can roll it, all that kind of stuff for more advanced players. For big arms, it's going to be really flippy, but get huge distance. But for newer, slower arm players, I would stay well away from anything even close to that speed range. Topping out around speed 9 or 10 for slow arm players, I think you're going to get better results. But you never know. You could try it and see what happens. But for new players, I definitely recommend staying away from anything that's fast. James Farias, what is the coldest weather you were willing to play in? Well, I don't have to worry about that too often here in Portland. It doesn't get super cold in the areas in Oregon that I frequent, but it also, yeah, it gets cold enough sometimes that I wouldn't go out. I couldn't really give you a threshold for that. I don't think there's ever been a time in Portland where I wouldn't play because it was too cold in my area. It's not like Wisconsin or Minnesota or, you know, somewhere like that where it gets super frigid. It's really not that big of a deal. So I pretty much play all year round out here. And we have days in like January and stuff where it'll be like in the 50s and sunny and tremendous golf weather. So it's more when it's really cold and raining or, you know, something like that, that I would be less likely to go out and throw, which happens a lot in the winter here. But temperature in my area isn't really an issue. But if I had to say other places, I mean, anything below 30 gets a little silly, I would say, for my taste. Marcus Bruns, how often would you say you play disc golf? Not as often as I'd like to. I also am kind of nursing a knee injury that's been kind of a thing for a couple of years now. So I try not to go too crazy with it. I play pretty much once a week if I'm good with that, you know, if I can. Try to play most weeks, at least a good round in there now and again, but that doesn't always happen. I will go weeks without playing sometimes, which probably sounds weird considering that I run this channel and all the other things I'm involved in with disc golf. But yeah, that's just pretty much how it works. When I was, before I was doing the flight footage for all my reviews, I was throwing a lot just out in the field and field testing stuff, but now a lot of that focus has shifted on filming shots flying, and then I also still test the discs plenty, don't get me wrong, but that used to be the bulk of the work for the reviews, was just me testing the plastic. Now I have to kind of schedule out filming sessions and stuff. That gives me a data point to bring to the table. Then I finish the testing as well. But there's throughout the year, most of the time when I get out throwing, I do a lot of field testing and kind of investigative testing for reviews and trying to figure out these discs so I can describe them and all that kind of stuff and let you guys know what I think of them. But yeah, I try to play around every week if I can, but I've been kind of taking off weekends as well to try to give my knee some time to kind of rest and heal up, since I'm on my feet for work as well, and it definitely exacerbates the issue. Blake Barnes asks, what's your favorite pro disc golf tournament to watch? It would have to be the Beaver State Fling. It's my hometown tournament here in Oregon, Milo MacGyver State Park. It's one of the best events of the year. You hear it referenced time and time again by all the top players out there on tour as one of the best events. I love it. I would love to see Jomez cover lead card or the Men's Pro Open in the future out at Beaver State, because they're my favorite media team, hands down. But other than that, I still love watching all the coverage that comes out for it, and I always try to get out and watch the final round for myself. Next year, I'm definitely planning on getting out there on like Friday and just spending the day out there, because I always go for lead card, and this last year it was a zoo. Like, there's so many people out there. There's a ton of umbrellas everywhere. It was kind of hard to get in position to see anything, and I think I want to go out on Friday and have a much more casual spectating experience where I can just kind of post up somewhere, watch several different cards come through and various people throw, maybe follow a card for a while if I feel like it or whatever, or just kind of post up with a lawn chair by a tee pad and just watch everybody come through. That would be probably what I'm trying to do next year. But yeah, Beaver State Fling. I really like Maple Hill. I always love the event that happens out there. Quick aside, I would much prefer if that event was just the Maple Hill Open presented by blank. I think that would be a lot more long-term of a name than what was the Vibram Open, and now it's the MVP Open, and then if MVP pulls their support from the event at some point, or they change directions, now we have to change the name of it again. Maple Hill Open, sponsored by, presented by blank. I think that's a better way to do it, personally. I don't know if anybody gives a damn what I think on that, but whatever. Maple Hill is amazing. And I've always been a huge fan of Worlds. Obviously, the added pressure, the prestige, the stakes of Worlds is always quite interesting, and something I'm always trying to watch. And the Green Mountain Championships is kind of being replaced by Worlds this year. That's usually one of the top events of the season for spectating and for coverage and stuff. But I like it all, man. I'm happy to watch golf, basically. If our top players are playing, I'm stoked on it, and that's cool. So, moving on. Frank Reynolds, what are your best 3 rounds you ever played? Oh, man. Like score-wise, I'm not really sure. My recent round out at Timber Park was one of the better rounds I've played in a long time. It was a personal best out there. I birdied almost half the course. Oh, not quite, though, because it's a longer course. Anyway, I had a lot of birdies. I was throwing really well, and it felt really good. But yeah, that's hard to say. I don't necessarily keep all that much track or pay attention to that. Like, I know when I've shot a personal best at a course, but none of them are terribly impressive. I try to keep track of that for the most part, but there are definitely some courses that I don't know what my personal best would be until I kind of have an extraordinary round there, and that kind of set the baseline. But I don't always track that kind of stuff, and I don't necessarily care. You know, I'm trying to get birdies. Birdies are more fun, but ultimately I'm just trying to do the best that I can for the most part, and beat my friends if they're out there with me as well. Donald Groff asks, what's the best plastic for dyeing? Probably Champion, Star, Z, ESP, Lucid, Fusion, Opto, Goldline. The top premium plastics work the best in my experience. And I kind of like the translucent plastics. I like Z plastic, and I have a Lucid plastic disc that I dyed many years ago that still looks sharp, and I like it. But it's always going to bleed in to some degree, especially if you kind of don't know what you're doing. There's techniques to it. If you're doing like spin dyes, usually the opaque plastics, your Star, ESP, Goldline, Fusion plastic works the best for that. And then G-Star seems fine for that as well. But yeah, you want to go premium plastic. The baseline basically just won't dye at all. And then anything like Pro or whatever, it doesn't really work very well either. Alex Chavez, of all plastic types across all brands, which is the most overstable? That's not necessarily a question that can be answered based on all the different factors and variations and variables that go into that, is the word I'm looking for. But probably, if I had to say, plastic types that I know for a fact are quite overstable compared to others within that brand or manufacturer at least. Z plastic seems to be the most stable for Discraft, except for probably the titanium plastic is quite overstable. But the new ESP runs are stiff and seem like they're pretty stable as well, so it's kind of hard to say. Again, just the plastic types themselves are have enough variance in them to not really be able to say definitively on that question. The fluid plastic from Dynamic Discs was a pretty overstable plastic blend for them. The soft, like Zero Soft or Classic Soft plastics are usually the most stable for the putters, from my experience. And like the Soft Suspect is way more overstable than like a Lucid one, for sure, that I've noticed. And then probably Metal Flake. Metal Flake plastic from Innova tends to be very overstable. Like a Metal Flake Max, Eagle McMahon has said is the most overstable disc that he's ever thrown. You kind of have to respect the kid. I mean, he throws about as fast and about as hard as anybody in the world, or is capable of doing that. And he knows what's overstable. He throws that Metal Flake Max on like a 400-foot, low hyzer, and I would probably be able to throw the damn thing 110 feet or something. So yeah, I would say probably Metal Flake is up there among the most overstable plastic types across brands. Jonathan Mante, do you think there should be some kind of pro tour that is played in the winter? Let me scroll over here. I'm from Michigan and play all the time in the snow. I'd love to see the pros battle it out in snowy conditions, see how they handle the adverse conditions. I agree that would be interesting, but I don't see it happening for a number of reasons. One, the winter is the off season for the top pros, and that's what they're using to spend time with their family, adjust things in their game, negotiate contracts with sponsors, and all kinds of the other things that they can't really necessarily do as well as they'd like to during the season proper. Also, I don't see them risking injuring themselves in some type of specialized winter season, slipping or playing in extremely frigid temperatures where your body's more likely to break down and be damaged by the fact that it's just that cold and your bones are kind of more brittle and the tee pads are slick and it just the whole thing just doesn't make any sense for anybody to want to do that at the top level of the game. I 100% agree. It would be cool to see people playing in the snow and in diverse conditions and how they handle that. But I just don't see any top professional making the decision to do that. It's just how it is, I guess. That's their time to be with their family and work on hitches and kinks in their game that they want to try to work out and get some field work in, or just put the damn discs down and get away from them for a month or two, as some players do as well. I know, like, Nate Doss is pretty known for that. Like, he puts the discs away after USDGC or whatever the last big event he plays for the season and doesn't touch them again for a good month and kind of focuses on the other aspects of his life. So, yeah, I just think there are too many obstacles to that being a viable idea, unfortunately. Bryce Hagen. Again, guys, I always try to pronounce your name as best I can, but I mean no disrespect if I mess it up. Is there anything about the game of disc golf you wish you could change, i.e. add a rule or change a style of baskets, etc.? Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I would definitely not change the baskets. I think changing to smaller baskets is the dumbest idea in the history of disc golf, and it infuriates me when people bring up, oh, we should use a basket that catches worse because that'll make it harder. No, that's just a terrible idea in all ways. To have more spit outs and less aces, less big putts go in. Please explain to me how our players playing worse makes the game better. Please, somebody give me one rational argument on how our players posting poor scores improves our game that's been steeply inclining and exploding in popularity over the last several years. Tell me how making it worse improves it. More spit outs and less putts staying in, less aces going in. No one has been able to provide a cohesive argument for why that would be beneficial in any way. In no other sport does anyone ever say, hey, oh man, they're just dunking too much in basketball, we should raise the hoop 5 feet. Yeah, it looks easy for the top players, but you know what? You have to make all those putts or else you're not going to be able to compete. So unless you can make it look easy, you're not winning the event. So that's the game. Be good at the game. And rant. I would not change the baskets. I think that's a completely ridiculous idea, and I also think you can't do that. How are we going to spend millions of dollars to change the baskets out at every course around the country, around the world? Or are we only going to have the pros play on different equipment and be the only sport out there where the pros or professional players are playing on different equipment than every other person who plays that game? Is LeBron James shooting on a hoop that's smaller and 5 feet higher than everybody else and every other basketball court outside of a high school or something? You know, it just makes no sense. Please stop with that. Would I change anything? I would absolutely permanently abolish or permanently institute the 2-meter rule. It's either a rule or it's not a rule. I can't stand this whole, it's a rule sometimes, it's a rule, it's not a rule other times. That makes no sense. That's dumb. I also just think it's a fluky, stupid rule. 2 players can throw into the same damn tree. One of them happens to trickle out and land next to the basket. They're fine. The other player happens to catch a little piece of a branch and stay up in the tree, and now they're taking a penalty. That's dumb. That makes no sense. I don't like the 2-meter rule at all. You're already being penalized by having your damn disc way up in a tree. You play underneath it and move on. I think that's foolish. There's no reason for that. And again, the main thing I really don't like about that is that it's not a firm rule. Either it's a rule or it's not a rule. I just don't dig that at all. I'm sure there are other things I could come up with, but I've already gotten fired up enough on that question. Let's move on. Anything else I would change? Nah, I don't think so. No. I'm sure there are other things that would come to mind if I really gave it some thought, but I think I'll leave it at that. Thanks for your question. Nolan Benetti, what is your favorite disc manufacturer? That's kind of a toss-up. I would have to say Latitude 64. That's been the way my bag has been trending for, most of the last few years. I've been really enjoying that plastic, and the discs are just working really well for my arm and my throwing style, but I still have 2 absolutely crucial discs to my game that are both from Discraft. So if I had to kind of pick one or the other, like say somebody came to me and said, hey, you're either going to be on Team Discraft or Team Latitude, you have to pick one or the other. It'd be a hard decision. I'd probably go Latitude just because I have more of it in my bag currently. But I would feel very confident putting together a full Discraft bag as well, sticking with my putters and my thrashers and filling in the gaps. I know exactly what discs I would go and try to fill in the gaps of what I would have to give up from Latitude and stuff and DD, but I would have to say Latitude 64 overall has been my favorite manufacturer, especially as the way my bag has been trending over the last several years. David Orkin, what are the impacts of elevation and temperature on a disc's flight? Temperature, I can't really help you there. I have no idea. From what I understand, for elevation, based on my experience, discs tend to fly a little farther and they tend to fly a little more overstable at higher elevation. That's why a lot of the players who live in like Colorado and Montana and stuff, when they come down and compete at sea level, they generally have to add some extra, more overstable discs to their bag to keep their shot shapes kind of similar, because they can throw something that's not as overstable up at high altitude and it will still be a very overstable disc. I have noticed that in my very limited experience playing in Salt Lake City. That's a relatively higher elevation area. I remember distinctly my drivers flying a little farther and behaving a little more overstable than what I was used to. In terms of the other aspects of it, I'm not really exactly sure. That would be a better question for somebody who like has more experience with that, I guess. We're in Portland and I'm sitting right now basically at sea level. So, and I also grew up at sea level to the point where if it rained really hard, my dad's car would be wet. We were that close to the water line. Let's see. Shane Bice, if you only had 4 discs to throw, what would they be? And he comped me the first one, which would be a magnet, which is definitely true. After that, 4 discs. Let's see. Tough one. That is a tough one. If you say 1, it makes it easier because I'm going with a putter because I want to be able to putt with it, or it's either a putter or a mid-range. But when you bridge it out to 4, it makes it a little more interesting. But I'm going to keep the magnet in place because I think that makes sense. If we're talking 4 actual pieces of plastic or 4 different molds, that would also change the question. So I'm not sure exactly what the intent was there for this particular instance. But let's see, magnet for sure. Either the Gobi or the Compass. That would be a hard one because they're both really great flyers. They're both pretty neutral. I would probably go Gobi though. It's like probably my favorite disc overall right now. I absolutely love that disc. So that would probably be what I use. But if we're talking molds, 4 molds, then I might go Compass because I have a beat-in compass that I can get to fly on tons of different lines, and then my Gold Line X compass is nicely straight stable, and I can throw it on a little hyzer and it's like lightly overstable, so that's really effective as well. And all my Gobis are just lasers, so that would be a little more versatile in that respect, because I'm not going to have like a slightly overstable Gobi. They're all like really neutral and straight flying, so that could be a different kind of take on it. I would have to go Thrasher for a distance driver, and then some, that's again tricky because I would want to go either understable or overstable for my next disc. I would probably have to say maybe like an Anchor, because it's an overstable disc that could fight the wind. I can throw it on hyzers and stuff, and it's just really consistent, and would be an effective disc to have. That's tough. Let's go magnet, Gobi, Anchor, Thrasher. That would cover me on most shots, I would say. Brandon Lahan, what do you do in the winter to keep up with your disc golf game? Not a whole lot. As we talked about earlier, I kind of keep playing almost as though it were normal, except for the fact that it rains a lot in the winter, and the rain coupled with the cold temperatures, I don't often go out and play when it's like in the 40s and rainy. Not necessarily my thing. So I end up focusing a lot on other things, and I usually spend more time working on disc golf stuff with the channel and whatever else during the winter. But if it gets nice out, I'll always try to run out and play. So I'm not like in one of these climates where it gets so cold that you're just kind of, it's out of the question for a couple of months. At that point, unless you have somewhere to putt or like throw into a net in the inside, I don't think there's a whole lot you can really do. You can kind of brush up on learning stuff like watching disc golf and watching instructional content or anything like that, and try to dial in some things. I have a flight towel that I can use to kind of go through my throwing form and working on my acceleration. That's kind of cool, and I will do that from time to time. But yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do, I guess. Some people are lucky enough to have big basements or garages where you can throw into a net or just work on your putting, and that would be a great way to do it. If you get kind of stuck inside in the winter and you have a garage where you can work on even 15, 20 footers, do it. Because if you make all your 20 footers, it's going to be beneficial for your game. When dyeing discs, this one's from Dick Dyer. When dyeing discs, do you prefer water or acetone to mix the iDye poly? I believe I mixed the iDye poly exactly how it says on the package. When I used to do dip dyes, like stencil dyes, I mixed it up basically how it told you to, and then I'd pour that into a glass bottle and just keep reusing it for a long time. I may even still have it. I probably got rid of it when I moved. I doubt I moved that here to my new place, but it's possible. I'm not really sure. For spin dyeing, I do the acetone mix, and I break down how I do that in my spin dyeing tutorial video, or how I used to do it. I haven't done it in a few years now, but I was never very good at it either. There's probably other places you can learn it, but I haven't had anybody just flat out comment that that I led them astray on that video. It's got a bunch of views on it, and I think the information was solid, and I showed you how I did it, and I had some decent results for some spin dyes. I don't think I have any discs left that I spin dyed like in my throwing stock, like, at all. Maybe I have one. Yeah, that's weird. I should probably get back into that. That was fun. I dig it. Ben Weidman. What can the disc golf world learn from the decline in the traditional golf world? Let's see. I would say, I don't know. I don't know how it directly... It seems to me, and I don't really know. I'm not an economist, nor have I studied any of this stuff, but it seems to me as though there was a surge in popularity for traditional golf at the height of Tiger Woods' popularity, and then kind of a ton of facilities, golf shops, courses, and things like that kind of were created to try to keep up with that demand, and then that demand steadily declined, and you were left with all this infrastructure that didn't necessarily have the financial backing to maintain itself. So we had all these little courses, some of them probably aren't very good, and pro shops and all these things that didn't have the customer base to make them sustainable. So if that was the case, and if we're looking at that objectively from disc golf's perspective, just don't get ahead of ourselves and grow with stay in line with the growth that we're seeing. Don't try to jump ahead and plan for some big explosion. Like, we are growing, and we're growing steadily, and we should grow the facilities and the manufacturers and the disc golf shops and stuff along with the market, and maintain what the market can support and sustain. If we kind of go beyond that and we put all this stuff into place that we can't keep up with and kind of jump the gun, that's not good. We want to just keep growing incrementally and slowly and keeping up with everything, and I think it would be better for us long term to do that, to just kind of let it happen naturally. Nathaniel Olakowski, in your personal opinion, do you think disc plastic affects the flight numbers of a particular disc? Example, does a Z buzz fly straighter than an ESP buzz? There's no personal opinion needed for this particular question, Nathaniel. That is absolutely a thing that happens. The different plastic types will affect the flights of discs. There's absolutely no debating that. In my opinion, I've tested a tremendous amount of plastic, as you guys know. I'm coming up on 200 different reviews alone, not including any of the stuff I've tested for myself personally before I did reviews, etc. The different plastic types do change the flights of the disc. There's really no debating that at all. Dan Payton. I travel a lot. Many of the courses I play are courses I've never played. How do you deal with new courses that you've never played and get the most out of your round? That one's tough. I do kind of enjoy that, though, because once you, especially if it's a shot where you can see the basket, like a par 3 course where you can kind of get a look at the baskets or walk halfway down the fairway and see where you're trying to go, it's kind of fun to just see a shot and try to execute it with no preconceived notions. A lot of the times I get in my own head because of courses I've played too often, or not too often, but often enough that I know what I've done wrong, I know what I've done right. Maybe this particular hole always gets me, and then I have that kind of negative connotation when I step up to the tee pad. I'm like, man, I hate this hole. I always take a 4 on this hole, and that kind of thing. When it's a blind shot, you just, a blind round, and you're just kind of going through. You just throw what you can throw and hope for the best. But I would say if you have the opportunity to kind of, if you're traveling to a tournament, and you have the opportunity to get there early and play practice rounds, obviously that's effective. And if you can do that, I would recommend, if say you only have one chance at a practice round, throw multiple shots, see where different options end up, and kind of take the best outcome, or the one that has the least amount of danger, or the one that best suits your eye, or anything along those lines, and kind of go from there. I couldn't really give you a whole lot beyond that, though, because it's pretty rare that I play brand new courses. I don't travel much at all, and I tend to just kind of play my favorites in and around the Portland area. So I can't really give you a whole lot more than that. But I do kind of enjoy stepping up to a shot with no kind of preconceived notions about it and just see the line and try to throw it. I kind of dig that. But yeah, and you also have to, if you're, say you're, I don't know what your situation is, maybe you travel for work or something like that, and you're just trying to go out and have some fun, throw some shots, I would kind of detach a little bit from the outcomes and just try to have fun and enjoy the course. And if you get a chance to play it again, you'll know a little more, and you can go from there. But I wouldn't be too upset, or if you don't shoot very well, especially when you're playing a blind round like that. Dan Payton asks, oh, nope, that's the same one, sorry. Paul Ward asks, are there any new plastic blends coming out in 2018? I'm not sure when you submitted this, but we've seen a few, most notably the Opto and Lucid X from the Trilogy brands, the Lucid X Trespass. Getting back to the question about does plastic type change flights, the Lucid X Trespass is almost a different disc than the older run Lucid Trespasses that I've thrown. It's very overstable in comparison, so that is an interesting plastic type. And if you are interested in any of those molds that are released in that, but you find that particular mold to be a little bit too understable and you want something with some more fade, some more stability, try the Lucid or Opto X. It's stiff, it has a great feel, beautiful look, and they are quite a bit more overstable than their standard Lucid or Opto counterparts from my initial testing on the Trespass. Andy Klinger, other than the obvious answers like vandalism, graffiti, and littering, what things do you see people do on the course you wish they didn't? Mine would be smoking, vaping, and foul language. The first two mostly because I'm allergic to fine particulates and the migraines ruin my day. Okay. Oh man, this one might get me fired up again. Whew, okay. Other than obvious answers, yeah, vandalism, graffiti, littering is super obnoxious as well, especially like cigarette butts. People that throw cigarette butts on the ground drive me insane. I'm going to state for the record that cigarette smoking is one of my least favorite things in the world, especially when people are throwing their cigarette butts on the ground. You're basically throwing like poison tea bags all over the ground that are going to get into the water table, and they don't biodegrade. They're everywhere. If you stop anywhere in any type of metropolitan area in the world and you stop and look at the ground, you're going to see cigarette filters on like every square foot of street and in every nook and cranny on every curb. It's absolutely horrendous how many of those end up on the ground, end up in the water table, end up leaching their toxic chemicals into our water, not biodegrading. They're just absolutely disgusting. I can't stand cigarettes. They're one of my least favorite things ever. They destroyed my dad's cardiovascular system from smoking. I'm sure they severely damaged my mom's. She ended up dying of a heart problem as well. And they're just they're just worthless. I can't stand cigarettes. So yeah, I would love it if I didn't have to deal with cigarettes in any aspect of my life, but that's not how things work. People have the right to do it. It's just unfortunate that they then take it as their right to throw their disgusting cigarette butts on the ground or make people breathe their toxic smoke. And it definitely sucks that you have to deal with that in the form of migraines and stuff. That's brutal. Other things I really don't like: slow groups that don't let you play through, people playing safari golf when you're playing the course traditionally and then trying to like throw over the top of you. That drives me absolutely bananas. I really can't stand people throwing in on me too. Like if you're not waiting for a group to clear and you're throwing in on a group and you get anywhere near them, that's really ridiculous, totally rude, and could honestly cause big problems with your course and with the local authorities if somebody gets hit by a disc because you're throwing in on a group before they clear because you're rude and disrespectful and have no patience. That being said, again, slow groups that don't let you play through drive me insane. Also, like, I'll start at hole 1 of a course, and then 18 people will start at hole 3 and kind of leapfrog in front of you. That drives me insane as well. Like, if there's a line at hole 1, you should start at hole 1 anyway and wait your turn, but then you take a 6-person group and you jump in front of me and my 2 friends who started on hole 1, on hole 4 or something like that, and then we instantly catch you because you're moving slower, and then we have to watch you and wait for you the whole time. Like, that kind of stuff drives me crazy. Slow play in general drives me crazy. I played an event recently, and I really don't care for tournament pacing of golf. Like, these just people taking forever to line up shots. It's like, come on, guys. We're playing basically a fun doubles event. Like, do you really need your full 30 seconds to line up a jump putt that you're going to miss? Like, do you really need that? Like, just throw the damn disc. Come on. All that kind of stuff is frustrating for me, but yeah, you nailed on the more important ones: vandalism, messing with the tee signs or with the baskets, and littering, and yeah, smoking and stuff. It's what it is. You know, I don't like smoking, but I don't really get bent out of shape if people are out smoking. I have disc golf friends that will smoke during the rounds. They're usually pretty cool, and I'm not like breathing it in, but still, yeah, I hear you though. That sucks that you have to deal with it, and it like legitimately causes you health concerns. That's not fair at all. Carlton Belford: I'm having trouble finding the right putter, with 2 exclamation points. I've putted with the AVR and tried out the Discmania P2s, none of which have felt very good in a round, but do feel good in the store. Any advice on how I could be approaching putter selection wrong? Okay, Carlton, I'm going to keep it real for you here, as our friend Bobby from Disc Golf Answer Man likes to say. There's a chance it's not the putter's fault, and you're just not necessarily giving it enough time to get a feel for it. Out there on the course. I've struggled with this myself. I've tried so many different putters over the years, and once I kind of tried the Jawbreaker Magnet and I saw it connect well with my form, and I had a couple of successful rounds with it, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to buy several of these so that I have a reason not to switch away. So I would have to sell off the 6 or 8 or so that I probably ended up with like 6 of them. 2 main ones, another couple of backups, a couple other backups, and a couple for practice putting, so maybe 8 or so. So in order for me to switch away from them, now I have this stock of them that I would need to get rid of. That kind of makes it a little less likely that I'm going to do so. And I was just going to stick with it. I think you're on the right track by looking for one that feels good in your hand. That's definitely a good option. But maybe you didn't quite give them enough time to figure out how you can connect with them out there on the course. I'm not going to say that there aren't putters that work better for various players and their different throwing styles and techniques, because that's not true. I personally connected very well with the Jawbreaker Magnet as a putter. It worked really well. Not only feeling good in my hand, but also flying the way I want it to. So if it's really not flying the way you want, then you should probably look for something else. But a couple other things I would say. Don't say you putt with putter A, and then you're going to try putter B for a round to see how it works as something else. Don't even take putter A out with you. Because what I used to do is I would try out a new putter, and then I would still have the other putters that I've been using with me, and if I had a couple of poor putts with the new one, I would just switch back to something else that I knew what it was doing. I used to have multiple putters that I'd use during a round. I have a friend who does this now. At any given round, he might have 4 or 5 different putters that he's going to use inside the circle, and I think it's severely hindering his ability to putt consistently. And I've kind of explained that to him. He doesn't really care. He's going to do his thing. And as we talked about earlier, there's lots of different approaches to golf. And it's hard to criticize, somebody's decision to do what they're going to do. But if you're going to take out a new putter to test it out, don't take anything else with you. Be forced to use that putter and try to make it work. And give it its due diligence to see if you can figure out how to connect with it. Because there might be a time where you release it on the right angle and it clicks, and all of a sudden you know what you have to do. That putter already feels good in the hand, and now you can make those putts, and you're good. That would be my advice to you, is don't give up on it so quickly or too quickly. I'm not really sure. Again, you could be, you might not be doing that, but that's something that I used to do that definitely hindered me in my my journey to find the correct putter. Good luck. I have a lot of different putters reviewed here on my channel that you can see close-ups of the way they're profiled and stuff like that. Don't be afraid to try other companies and manufacturers as well. You might find something great. Feel free to send me an email, discgolfnerd1@gmail.com, if you want more suggestions or any other specific questions about putters. I'm always available to help. Good luck, and I hope that helped. This one just comes from Z. It says, who is your favorite player? Well, Z, it's Ricky Wysocki, and long-term listeners and viewers of the channel are not surprised by that at all. Trevor Potter, what is the best speed for a newer player to drive with? Putter or mid-range? I'm starting to lean, as we talked about earlier, I'm starting to lean towards mid-ranges for most average players to start learning on. A nice, understable, neutral mid-range is a great disc to throw because it behaves a little bit more like a golf disc than a Frisbee, and they fly with a little bit more distance than a putter, so that's rewarding when you're starting out to get a nice flight out of it. The DGA Tremor is a great option. I think the Gobi would be a great option. I think the Meteor is fantastic. A Comet could be great. What else am I, like maybe a Fuse, or what's the new Patrol from DD would probably be a fantastic beginner driver, but it kind of depends on how far along you are. Once you've played some rounds with your mid-range or your putter, you feel like you're getting it down and you're trying to move into a driver, I would say speed 7 to a 9 or so. There are some really great 9-speed drivers like the Jade, the Fury, the Saint, the Escape, that are all very straight flying discs that are very easy to throw for players that don't have a lot of arm speed. They're still very effective for more experienced players like myself. I love those discs. They work great. The Maverick from DD would be a good option to look into. A Leopard, Leopard 3, those type discs would be good to check out. But yeah, you don't want to throw anything 12, 13, 14 speed when you don't have much in the way of arm speed. You could try it and see how it works, and if it fits a roll in your bag, that's all good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, I think staying below a speed 9 or so for newer players is going to be beneficial in the long run. Help you learn how to throw those shots nice and flat and straight, and that's what you're looking to do. The problem with faster, more overstable discs, as I've spoken about many times on the show, but just once again, in case you haven't heard it, is that in order for you to get distance when you have a lower arm speed with a high-speed disc, generally you want to throw it on anhyzer and let it turn to the right, force it over to the right, and let it flex out to get that extra distance. Then when you get to the point where you're trying to throw a flat, straight shot, which is an important shot for you to be able to throw, you're used to cranking everything on over on anhyzer, wobbling it out to the right, and letting it dump back out to the left to get distance, and to get a somewhat straight flight out of it, where it would be much more beneficial for you to throw neutral to understable, straight flying discs and learn how to throw them on the varying release angles, nice and smooth throughout the throw, and set your base for your different release angles and your accuracy, and start off on the right foot. Anthony Mackie D. Pryor, what's your style of putting? Push, spin, or spush? I really hate that term. That's not your fault. Spush. Oh, that just annoys me. I'm sorry. And why did you end up picking that one? Did you try other styles? Oh, I've tried styles. I've tried all the styles. I've tried spinning. I've tried to do like the Nico kind of underhand pitch putting. I can't do that at all. I don't know how that works. My buddy Anthony was trying that out recently, and it looked pretty good. He might switch to that for a while. It was looking great. I can't do it. I don't know how it works. He is had like a semi-professional bowling background, so maybe that helps. But I can't do it at all. Mine, I kind of style after Paul Macbeth, where it's kind of somewhere in between. It's not really a push putt, nor is it a full spin putt. I kind of reach down, and then I come up, and I do try to put some forward spin on the disc. I have not ever really filmed my putting when it's looking well to see what it actually looks like, but I would think it's some type of a hybrid between the two. I settled into it because it was working the best. That's basically it. You know, spin putting, I still like spin putting, and I will do like true spin putts depending on certain situations. Like if I have like a little bush in front of me or something like that, and I can just kind of pull it in tight to my body and just spin it out to try to jam it in. Or I will do more of a forceful spin putt into the wind with my caltrup if I need to. But yeah, mine is kind of more of a half and half, but I'm somewhat versatile in the way that I'm able to putt based on different situations, and so I do switch it up kind of as needed, I guess. But yeah, I kind of just settled into it. It was working, and I've been sticking with it to try to maintain consistency, because when we're talking about putting, as I've mentioned before, it's not difficult. Like throwing a putt from 20 feet is not a difficult endeavor in the world of sports. What is difficult is doing it the same way every time, and making all of those 20-footers, or a vast majority of them, in order to shoot well. That's what's difficult. The mechanics at work to throw a disc into the basket from 15, 20 feet is not hard. But making all of those, especially from different angles and with different things in your way, or having to go down to a knee or anything along those lines, is difficult, and that's what makes the difference. What type of training, this one's from Chad Guyton, what type of training or work do you put in during the off-season to improve your game outside of just playing rounds like field work, stretching, strength training, etc., watching watching form coaching videos, etc.? I don't really do a lot of any of that stuff. As we talked about earlier, I do continue to throw and play throughout most of the year out here in Oregon. There's usually like 1 or 2 snowstorms that shut the city down and I don't leave the house, or there's a couple of weeks there where it's super rainy and I don't get in much throwing. In those times, I'll kind of just step away from disc golf and kind of just maybe I'll go back and watch the previous season's Jomez coverage and just enjoy it as a fan. And usually we'll use that time to kind of like mess around with my plastic and go through it and maybe acquire a couple of new things I want to try when the weather gets better, that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't really do a lot of that other stuff. Also, off-season, and this question is in quotes. I don't really have a season. It's not like I'm a tournament player, so I just play golf all year round. So yeah, that's not really something that necessarily applies to me. I definitely do field work. I like stretching. I really want to get into more of the disc golf strong stretching and those type of movements. I might actually do that today after I get done doing this. I have the house to myself. I might kind of mess around and try a couple of the body weight exercises that Seth from Disc Golf Strong recommends. But yeah, that's about it, really. I don't really have like a regimen that I do, that's for sure. I've never really been that kind of person, I guess. I'm a musician, I'm a disc golfer, and I kind of just like to do it. You know, I don't sit and practice scales and modes and stuff on my bass. I just try to play music. I try to make music. With disc golf, I will do field work. I will try to dial in things with my form, but for the most part, I just want to go throw shots. See where we're at here. I might call it relatively soon here. Yeah, we're looking at 49 minutes. Let's get a couple more at least. Aaron Kirschner, what putter do you find the most versatile, such as distance, flight path, and of course putting? I would have to say the Magnet has been the most versatile, useful putter that I've used over the course of my career. It's not a far-flying putter, but it is very effective off the tee for me on shorter shots. And it's super versatile in terms of being able to snake its way through different fairways, and I really like that. But I would probably say, yeah, maybe something a little more stable than a Magnet would actually be more versatile, something you could Pullover on anhyzer as needed, something you can power into a little more to get more distance, like maybe a pure. As terms of a putter mold, that's very versatile and useful. The pure is a great one. For like opto pures are fantastic driving putters. They're just dead straight. They work fantastic, and you can throw them really far for a putter. They fly really far. And also, you can get one in a more traditional plastic and use it for putting, and they work great for that as well. The MVP, or Axiom Envy, definitely stands out as well as a really tremendous disc. It's great for approaching, putting, short driving. You can get them in different plastics that have slightly different flight paths as well. That would be a great disc to check out. The Envy is a really tremendous mold. Sometimes I miss having an Envy in the bag. I tried to put it back in a couple times and just didn't find myself needing it as much, but I do still really love that mold. I still think the Envy is one of the top putters on the market, just for the record. Adam Petrie, what is your favorite plastic by any or each brand? My favorite plastic by any brand is probably Opto or Lucid plastic. I have more of it in my bag than anything else. I have Opto Furies, I have Lucid Trespasses, Lucid X Trespass, Opto Compass, Opto Gobi, although I guess that's two different plastic blends. I have an Opto Caltrup, so I really like that plastic. It's very consistent. It's got a good grip. It's super durable. It holds flight characteristics for a long period of time. Bright colors, all the stuff I mentioned in the reviews all the time. By other brands, I really like the Big Z plastic by Discraft. My Big Z Thrasher is amazing. I have a gummy regular Z plastic Thrasher that I also really like. I was never a big fan of the ESP plastic. I used to like the ESP Flex plastic quite a bit for my buzzes and my Surge SS years ago when I was a Discraft guy. For Innova, I actually really like G-Star. I like the gummy feel to it. It feels really nice. But yeah, if I was gonna all of a sudden put together an Innova bag, there'd be some G-Star in there, and then there'd be a mix of Star and Champion as well. I don't have a huge preference there. Tyler Ball asks, I've been interested in throwing more dynamic discs plastic. What's your favorite type or most consistent plastic in the DD line? Lucid plastic, but they're all great. The Fusion plastic is fine. Biofusion's awesome as well. Totally fine. They all make good stuff. So yeah, really whatever you want to try is your call on that one, but I prefer Lucid plastic for the most part. I think it's great. Fabian Slot, let's say you are introducing the game of disc golf for a couple newbies. What disc or discs would you have them play with? Manufacturer, mold, plastic type, and weight. Would you use one disc or a set of, say, 3 discs? By the way, you do not need to include me in the giveaway because I live in Sweden or Finland. For the record, Fabian and anybody else listening overseas, I truly value my overseas fan base. You guys are awesome. It's really cool to know that people in Scandinavia and other parts of the world are listening to my content and watching my videos. It's very cool. You are eligible for all the giveaways. If you're in some area that's going to cost me a lot of money to ship the disc to, I may ask you to send me a couple of bucks for PayPal to help offset some of that cost. But I actually sold a few of my Disc Golf Nerd Stamp custom discs to people in Finland and Sweden, and I don't remember shipping being all that expensive. It actually worked out to be a few dollars more. Wasn't that big of a deal. So you guys are all eligible to enter into the contest, and if for some reason where you live it would cost me a lot of money to ship it to you, I may have you help me offset a portion of the shipping cost. I may not, but I'll still give you the disc for free. So we kind of talked about this at the top of the show. Maybe I will leave off on this question. Let's see where we're at for time. Yeah, perfect. This will be my final question, leaving off on question 72 for next time, and then I only have a few to get through next time. That's great. Okay, introducing the game to new players. What am I going to do? I'm going to bring putters and mid-ranges. I'm going to have them try a couple of different things right at the offset of the round, and once they kind of connect with one and one seems to be doing the best, that's what I'm going to have them stick with. As we talked about at the top of the show when I took out Hannah and Fallon, I had them try a couple different things. The first throw that Hannah threw with the tremor, it stood up straight and flew really nice. felt good in her hand, and that's what she stuck with for the rest of the round, and that allows them to build some consistency and see some results. You want to take away that variable of trying to control different aspects of a disc's flight when you're just starting out. The name of the game is throwing it flat and straight down the fairway. That's it. You're chipping away. You're throwing little short shots as straight as you can, trying to control that disc. That's all you really want out of your first couple of rounds. Absolutely no drivers. If we're talking total beginner players, I wouldn't even bring drivers out there. I brought a couple of different things to bring just out of total curiosity to essentially try to see if I could kind of vindicate my own feelings on this. I brought out a breakout and a witness, so they're two very understable, very beginner-friendly drivers. I had Hannah try them a couple of times, and you could see that they were fading out far sooner than the putters and the mid-ranges. So that just kind of, once again, vindicates what I've been teaching and hammering on my channel for years now, is that drivers, stay away from drivers for your first couple of rounds. They're just... You need to know what you're doing a little bit before you get there. You're going to be more successful with putters and mid-ranges. Putters, neutral, straight-flying putters, I think, are the most versatile and effective for the most different skill levels. If you have somebody who's a little bit more athletic, a mid-range is a great option. And in general, a mid-range can be totally fine. But yeah, depending on who it is, I think putters are your best bet if you want to bring out a couple of different types of very straight flying to neutral putters and mid-ranges, understable stuff, and then have people feel them, see if there's a difference in the way they feel in their hand and their ability to release them. And then once they kind of settle into one that they like or that feels good, that's it. That's their disc for the round, and let them play the whole round with that disc and get a feel for it. The only thing that I don't really like about mid-ranges is that when you get close to the basket and you only have that one disc, now you're trying to putt with a mid-range, which is a little bit odd. So if you have people that are trying to throw a mid-range off the tee and stuff like that, you might want to also have a putter for them to use when they get close to the basket. But it's not really that big of a deal for a brand new player to try to putt for their first couple rounds with an understable mid-range. I don't think it would be that big of a problem. It should still be fine, but a putter is a better option for putting, obviously. If you want to do a mid-range and a putter, that's fine. Manufacturers and molds and plastic types and weights. Generally, lighter weight discs are more effective for beginners, but the longer I play disc golf, the more I feel like that's really kind of an overblown thing. I think any kind of standard weight for an understable mid-range is going to be fine for your beginners to throw. I really don't think you have to give them something that's lightweight for them to be effective. Lightweight discs will fly farther, but I don't know. As time goes on, I feel like I really don't know if that's all that important. And I think, especially with putters, if you're talking about like really lightweight 150 class putters, I think those are more squirrely and more difficult to control than, say, a 170, 165 or so. So definitely don't feel like you need to get a really lightweight disc, but something a little lighter in the 160s or maybe like 170 or so wouldn't hurt at all. Discs. Let's talk about actual molds. The DGA Tremor seem to work out great. Any type of straight flying putter is fine. Deputies would be great. Like a Swan would be great. Magnets. Discraft soft magnets have always been really, really effective beginner discs for me. Every time I give a brand new player a soft magnet, they're able to throw it very straight, and that makes them feel good. When they throw a shot and it goes straight down the fairway, that's what connects, and you're like, oh, that was awesome. I really like that. That's why I try to get people to stay away from drivers, because when they throw it and it just hooks out to the left, that's not as rewarding as throwing a putter or an understable mid-range straight down the fairway. That's what feels good. When you release it, you see it stand up and fly on that line that you're going for. That's when it connects. That's when the fun comes in, and people are more likely to stick with it at that point. So the Wombat is a great choice. G-Star Wombats are really, really straight flying discs that work great for beginners, but any type of understable mid-range or putter should be just fine for your average beginner when they're just starting out. Don't feel like you need to go premium plastic either. You know, if you get a couple of DX, what would it be, like a DX Shark or something like that, or a Pro D Buzz, or anything along those lines, should be a great option for your average beginner, and should get them started off on the right foot. that's it for this episode. Big thank you to everybody for listening. Stay tuned for a ton more reviews coming up soon. I know I'm kind of behind on all that. I appreciate your patience. I have a ton of discs that I have yet to review, and I hope to get out and do some field testing and filming with those very soon, and get some new content out there as soon as I can for you guys. But stick with me, and thank you for your patience. Thank you for your support. Thanks for submitting your questions. I will finish off these questions on next week's episode, or the next episode. Might not be next week, but it might be. And then we'll move on from there with some other content. I appreciate you guys. I'll check you later. Cheers.